our audio back on. We are on agenda A3, welcome and public meeting remarks. I will cover our public meeting rules before our public comment section of the agenda, which brings us to A4. The council will consider adopting a joint ceremonial resolution with Madam Mayor Mendenhall declaring between April 8th, 2021 and May 8th, 2021 as days to sound the alarm to help educate and protect residents of our community against home fires. I will now turn the time over to Councilmember Valdemoros to read the resolution.
One moment. I don't have it in front of me. I'm so sorry. One moment. I cannot move it. Oh man. One second, guys. I'm sorry.
That's okay, Councilmember.
All right. So I'm guessing Bobby is going to be moving the resolution as I read it. Okay, joint resolution advocating for the Sound the Alarm program from the American Red Cross, whereas home fires claim an average of 7 lives every day, but installed working smoke alarms can cut the risk of death by half. And whereas the American Red Cross is working to reduce fire-related deaths and injuries by 25%. And whereas the American Red Cross is rallying volunteers to virtually provide free fire safety and prevention workshops to families, and families who need smoke alarms will be placed on a waiting list for future installations. And whereas Sound the Alarm events will be held virtually throughout the United States in more than 100 major U.S. cities, including Salt Lake City between April 8, 2021 and May 8, 2021. And whereas Sound the Alarm is part of the ongoing annual Red Cross Home Fire campaign, already credited with saving 836 lives across the country. And whereas Salt Lake City, the Red Cross, and community partners will help save lives through Sound the Alarm by educating families about home fire safety, helping families create a fire escape plan and practice their plan, and will install free smoke alarms in the future when it is safe to resume in-person activities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor declare between April 8, 2021 and May 8, 2021 as days to sound the alarm to help educate and protect residents of our community against home fires.
Thank you, Councilmember Valdemoros. I will turn, sorry. Thank you, Councilmember Valdemoros. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt this joint resolution with the mayor.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Johnston and a second by Councilmember Wharton. I will go ahead and roll call this. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes unanimously. Normally, as everyone knows, when we do a resolution, we would usually be in the city county building and be able to present this to representatives of the organization. However, we are remote, but we still have representatives here that we would love to acknowledge and virtually pass this resolution to. And that would be Del Brady and Patrick Risk. And if they are here with us. Maybe they are not yet. Someone? Anyone?
Council Chair, we do not see Del Brady just yet.
Okie doke. Well.
One moment, Council Chair. It looks like he just popped in here. We're going to move him over to panelists right now.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. I apologize for the delay and the technical difficulties.
I am so sorry, Mr. Brady, that I did not check to see if you were here before we read the resolution. We did read, and for the public, Mr. Brady is the executive director of the Greater Salt Lake Area Chapter of American Red Cross. And we did read the resolution and would like to virtually pass this to you and give you a moment to say some words if you'd like.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Fowler. I was actually lucky to be present as the resolution was read and then as the motion was passed and then voted on. Thank you so much for your unfailing support to our families in this wonderful community and to the American Red Cross. Our Sound the Alarm campaign is a free service that we offer to any and all families. And especially in the pandemic, we are working to keep everyone safe. And so we're providing these services virtually and look forward to the day when we can return to in-person services and install free smoke alarms to help keep our families safe. Thank you so much for your support. We are grateful to be serving Salt Lake City and grateful to stand with you in protecting our community.
Thank you so much. It's a virtual clap. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for all of the work you do for our communities.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
With that, I will turn to agenda item number 5. And Madam Mayor, of course, thank you for being with us as always. And at this point, the mayor will present recommendations to the council regarding proposed community development block grant funding, emergency shelter grant funding, home investment partnerships program funding, and housing opportunities for persons with AIDS funding budgets. It's interesting when I say the words because we're so used to using the acronyms that I forget. So we did have a little bit of a discussion about this in our work session, but Mayor, I'd love to turn the time over to you. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, City Council. And I'd say tonight I'm presenting my recommendations, but as you mentioned, they've already kind of been a little unpacked in the work session. So thanks for that discussion as well. But this is our annual HUD Entitlement. It's our grant programs for our coming fiscal year of 21-22. And as you know, these are really critical grant programs that provide a variety of services and opportunities for our low-income, underserved, and our vulnerable communities. This year, we received just over $9 million in requests with around $6.7 million available to allocate. I'd like to underscore that these funds are the city's annual regular allocations, and they're separate from other COVID-related funding that we've received and we will be receiving, and that we designate toward COVID relief programs specifically. You're going to see that these recommendations are not geared toward addressing COVID needs in our community, but instead they align with advancing the goals of the city's 5-year consolidated plan. Those goals in the plan include housing, homeless service, community resilience, transportation, and behavioral health. And as you've already reviewed, there are certain grant categories that align very nicely with the funding that's available. Just a minute, honey. Dessert.
Tequila.
As in past years, we're going to continue to have to make hard decisions. And those were some of my hardest nights on the city council making decisions about these precious HUD dollars that go out to our community partners. And there's never enough funding to address all of the applications, nor even all of the identified needs in the community. This year, you're going to see familiar organizations and programs as well as some new ones, and we value a range of providers and services that advance our city's consolidated plan goals. These applications represent services and projects by organizations who make our community better every single day, and I thank them and their staff from the bottom of my heart on behalf of the city for the amazing work that they do and that they've persisted in doing amid a pandemic. I want to extend my appreciation also to the city's advisory boards, those volunteer Cdbg boards that dedicate their time and do a detailed review and then issue recommendations which lead to the scores that you see on the charts that you get. Also, I want to thank the city's HAND team for conducting the public and the competitive application process for these funds and make sure that our city is in compliance with HUD as we distribute the dollars into the community. Thanks for giving me a moment, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We appreciate you being here and the hard work that the teams have done to make these recommendations. It is a difficult process, but always look forward to finally getting money out into the community. So thank you. With that, we are going to move on to our public hearings, and I am going to go through what we may have been bored of hearing, yet is so very important in our open meetings and in order to have a very good and successful public hearing and community meeting. We are now at the public hearing portion of our agenda. We take comments for each of the items scheduled for a council hearing. General comments will take place after the scheduled hearing items. We are accepting your comments through WebEx, and for those whose only option is to call in, staff will be monitoring a separate telephone line. The City Council has always had rules of decorum that are created to advance the legitimate government objectives of having an orderly, efficient meeting that moves through the agenda and gives everyone the opportunity to voice their opinions. In person, we have the added benefit of being able to see each other, which helps us get to know our constituents and engage more meaningfully. We will still want to provide a space for people to feel comfortable and safe to participate. In order to achieve this, our rules of decorum extend from the moment you arrive into our virtual meeting. To help facilitate our comment period, please be respectful. Avoid yelling or making racial slurs, obscene, or defamatory remarks. We want everyone to feel safe in this space. The council respects all points of view and we welcome new insights. However, using foul language and personal attacks make the public comment forum uncivil and intimidating for others. This meeting is also being broadcast on television and the internet, and so we will more strictly enforce the use of profanity. This will be considered your advanced warning against the use of profanity. If someone uses profanity, we will mute your microphone and you will forfeit your opportunity to address the council tonight. If you feel you need to use profanity to express your point, you're welcome to email council members or call our comment line at 801-535-7654. In addition, just as we would ask for your name in our in-person meetings, we have requested your name during the registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your registered name does not meet this requirement, then our staff will use the chat feature to gather that information from you. Robert Nutzman from our staff is helping to moderate the meeting and will be messaging with the attendees to coordinate. Please monitor the chat screen for information and/or feel free to message our staff with any questions. Again, his name is Robert Nutzman. Isaac Canedo will be calling the names of those who wish to comment and unmuting lines. Once we open the public comment, Isaac will announce 3 names at a time so that people can have some notice and be prepared to speak. When it is your turn to speak, the meeting host will unmute your line. Please state your name and your 2-minute timer will begin. At the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time and your microphone will be muted. Of course, if you are unable to complete your full comment within the available time, please feel free to contact us. Again, you can mail the Salt Lake City Council at P.O. Box 145-476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114. Email us at council.comments@slcgov.com or call 801-535-7654. If you do not wish to speak, please message our staff to let them know, or when the host states your name, please just let us know that you're here to listen. Thank you all for joining us, and we will begin the public hearing comments. And sorry for my little smirk earlier. I have a new puppy, and all I can hear is prancing outside of my office. So at this point, we will go ahead and begin with our public hearing. Item number 1 is a grant application. The grant application request from the Division of Engineering to the Utah Department of Transportation. If awarded, this grant would fund safety improvements to the railroad crossing at 4900 West, 700 South. And before we take comments, I will turn the time over to Sylvia from our council staff for a little bit of introduction. Thank you. Sylvia, you're muted.
I beg your pardon. Can you hear me now? Thank you. The city applies for and receives grants which help to support and fund some city programs. Each grant application is reviewed and then receives a public hearing, which gives the public an opportunity to comment on them. Tonight, as you mentioned, there is the one grant, and you've already mentioned it's the Round 1 Railroad Safety Grant for the railroad crossing at 4900 West and 700 South. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And then I was muted. With that, we both owe $1 to the jar. I will turn the time over to Isaac to start with our first public comment on this public hearing.
Good evening, council members. We have nobody here to comment on this item. We can proceed.
Thank you. It looks like I am looking for a motion with this, so I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the council close the public hearing and refer item B1 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Mono. I will go ahead and roll call this. Councilmember Rogers?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston?
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Mono?
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes. Our second scheduled public hearing is regarding budget amendment number 7 for fiscal year 2020-2021. Before we begin taking comments, I will go ahead and turn the time over to our council staff policy analyst, Ben Ludke, to give a short introduction. Ben, are you here? Oh, there you are.
Yes. This is the first public hearing for budget amendment number 7. There are 46 items in total, and it's $22.7 million in proposed expenditures. There are also 3 new full-time employees that are proposed. And I'd like to note there's $6 million from the U.S. Treasury for emergency rental assistance. So if any Salt Lake City residents in need of rental assistance are listening, they can apply at rentrelief.utah.gov. The council staff report, the administration's proposal, and the supporting documents are all available in the agenda packet. And note that these were updated for the second briefing that the council held. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ben. Isaac, let's start with our first public comment.
Great, we have around 12 people tonight. Starting off, we'll have Crystal Key, followed by Eliza McKinney, and then Brian Hill. I will now unmute Crystal. Crystal, you're unmuted.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Crystal Kuh. I'm here because I wanted to urge the City Council to vote against Budget Amendment 7. I work with the unsheltered. I work with them about 3 times a week, and I can see the increase of difficulty it is for folks to find stability because of the police and because of the constant abatements. It's the same people who are being abated over and over again, and they keep losing their belongings. And so I think it would be much better for the budget to move towards something that is more practical, that provides the unsheltered with services that they actually want and they can actually use, rather than, you know, sending $650,000 to the police to increase abatements. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Crystal. Next up, we have Liza McKinney, and followed by Brian Hill, and then Eli Kaufman. Eliza, you're unmuted.
Hi, my name is Eliza McKinney. You've heard from me many times at the city council meetings. I wanted to express my concern for Budget Amendment 7, particularly the portions that increase funding to the police department and take money from the general fund. I feel like the city council continues to funnel money into the police department against the wishes of residents and of our community, and without a lot of foresight into how that money could be spent in other places and could make our city better. It feels particularly insulting and insensitive to increase funding to make up for protest spending that the police are requesting, when many of those protests were asking to defund police. I think that that sends a terrible message to the residents of Salt Lake of where the city council's priorities are and what they care about by giving the police that funding. I also noticed in this week's agenda that all of these increases to the police budget weren't mentioned in the overview. I know that this amendment is a really large amendment and has lots of really great things in it, but it felt misleading to not include these huge budget increases to the police department in that summary. And I would hope that you would do that in the future. And I think that that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Eliza. Now we have Brian Hill, followed by Eli Kaufman and Liz DeFries. Brian, you're unmuted.
Thank you for your time. As many of you may be aware, one of downtown's largest encampments is located directly across the street from the Gateway, where the former road home was located. At times, this encampment has included well over 40 tents. The Gateway has been disproportionately impacted by the encampment on Rio Grande in terms of safety, cleanliness, and expense. While we appreciate the abatement effort, it is insufficient and ineffective without enforcement. The Gateway has invested a considerable sum in revitalizing downtown, and we have had to carry the burden of paying for additional security and janitorial staff to address situations including theft, violence, drugs, bio-waste, and vandalism related to the Rio Grande encampment. Our tenants, residents, and patrons are entitled to feel safe when frequenting the Gateway, and the encampment impedes our ability to attract new tenants that will enable the Gateway to thrive. We request that additional funding to help enforce the no camping rule on the Rio Grande Street, that will help ensure the cleanliness and security of the Gateway and the surrounding area. We understand that if funding is approved on April 20th, that there would still be a time before another abatement could be set up. In the interim, we are requesting that there are additional resources provided, specifically porta potties and garbage receptacles for those living at the Rio Grande encampment, which will help by limiting trash that blows in from the encampment and bio-waste in the Gateway's garages, stairwells, and elevators, and for those residing at the encampment. The Gateway would appreciate your vote to approve funding to enforce the no camping rule post-abatement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Now we have Eli Kaufman, followed by Liz DeFries and Shane Brooks. Eli, you are unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm Eli. I've been a resident of Salt Lake my whole life, and I am a member of Wasatch Tenants United. I am on here to let you all know that myself and the entirety of Wasatch Tenants thinks that you should vote no on Budget Amendment 7, and quite frankly, on any funding towards the police. Do you know how exhausting it is to go to work all day and then in my free time have to come here and tell all of you to do your job and have some baseline compassion for poor people? I'm telling you as an SLC resident that I have witnessed too many camp sweeps. These camp abatements are violence. And I know too many people personally who have been physically beaten by the cops who you fund. The only solution is to defund the police. What I found most offensive about this budget proposal, though I disagree with all of it, is the protest costs. There is nothing more sinister than you wanting to use our money to reimburse SLCPD for traumatizing our entire communities. You have no idea the harm they have done to us. This money should be used for affordable housing as redefined in the Wasatch Tenants' demands. We are paying attention to who votes for these violent proposals, and we are more organized than ever. We will make sure you do not get reelected if you refuse to do what is right for the community. Once again, I just want to say that voting for more money to be given to Salt Lake City Police is violence to our communities, and these homeless people are people. They do not need to be cleaned up, they need to be given housing. You can't push them out of public spaces when they have nowhere else to go. The solution to homelessness isn't to push these people out of our neighborhoods. They are my neighbors, they are our community members. They need to be given places to live. And until then, stop taking their tents, stop making the health department push them out of the places that they have found to camp. Where else are they supposed to go? Tell me where else they are supposed to go. Give me one answer. And if it's homeless shelters that lie about their bed capacity, and if it's homeless shelters that don't have space for everybody because of COVID precautions, tell me what their options are aside from the open air shelter, aside from giving a gateway.
Thank you for your time, Eli. Now we have Liz DeFries, Shane Brooks, and Madison Donnelly. Sorry, one second. Liz, you're unmuted.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I am just calling to urge the City Council to vote against Budget Amendment number 7 as well. As a therapist who works primarily with families impacted by the carceral system in Salt Lake County, I know that what the city needs is not more police funding, but funding which will provide critical resources to families in need. I'm always hearing these business owners call and complaining that we need more police because there are homeless people near their businesses. It's ridiculous to me that we think that law enforcement will resolve homelessness. All it does is push people from one area of the city to another, and then I'm sure, as you're aware, you get more calls from other business owners mad that people are now there. Like, it seems pretty obvious that the police are not going to help with these problems because people need housing, people need public bathrooms, right? If we have, like the mayor is talking about earlier today, that there's never enough funding for all of the identified needs in our community. Well, then I strongly suggest that we stop pouring millions of dollars into the police, as we know that the police only exacerbate needs in our most marginalized communities. The police are only a tool of violence and intimidation. They do not prevent harm. They show up after harm has already occurred, and they add further harm that does nothing to alleviate the lack of needed resources, creating the harm in the first place. The reason we don't need constant police presence in Sugar House is because that neighborhood is privileged with resources. If you are concerned about increasing crime or homelessness, then you need to divest funds from the police so that we can actually fund those basic resources like independent housing, food, clean water, public bathrooms, and medical and mental health care. My experience working with the unsheltered community members has taught me that jail-style shelters are not an answer because they severely restrict basic privacy and autonomy. And we have reports that the shelters are dropping people off at these camps because they are full. So I'm sick of hearing that we have these shelters and they're a great option. People are not taking your shelter options because they're terrible. So we need to fund independent housing.
Thank you. Now we have Shane Brooks, followed by Madison Donnelly, and then James Miska. Shane, you are unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Shane Brooks. Thank you for your time tonight, City Council members. I want to come here today and say you guys need to vote no on Budget Amendment 7. When we marched all summer long and said defund the police, this is what we meant right here. $650,000 to support the abatements when they send down more cops than what is needed in the event that one person may get hostile because they are being traumatized because their items are being taken away from them is excessive. They're doing it as a reason to justify overtime. Then they're asking for grants to pay for overtime. They're trying to double dip on the budget to increase a budget. You as city council members need to notice that and say, well, we're not going to pay you twice. Then you can allocate money over to mental health resources, education resources, housing resources, substance abuse resources, and you can put the money into the other resources that the community demanded for all summer long. Asking for $500 some odd thousand to support protest costs, that's an infringement upon our freedom of speech rights when they are asking for that money to protect our rights. You as city council members need to realize that and say, we're not going to do that. When they're asking for COVID relief money and they say, we're going to ask for it from you, but then we're going to ask for it from FEMA. Let them ask for it from FEMA first, then ask for the rest from you if needed. Don't give them the money front and then let them ask for it from FEMA and get it all. But don't let them double dip and get twice the money. Pay attention to what they're asking. That's all I have for you tonight, city council members.
Thank you. Now we have, well, it appears Madison Donnelly has left. So now we have James Miska, followed by Liza Hazel, and then Emma Goldman. James, you're unmuted.
Yeah, you can hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, nobody was responding. My name is James Miska. I'm a homeowner, a small business owner, and a resident of Salt Lake, and I'm urging you to vote no on budget amendment number 7. I would like to reiterate or some support for the comments made by Eli Kaufman earlier. I'm specifically not in support of any increases whatsoever to the police department budget. This has been an ongoing important issue to me because citizens of our city were promised a decrease in police funding as a result of ongoing peaceful protests last year, many of which I was a part of, many of which I witnessed. Many of the people who have been killed by police over the past several years, a lot of those whose faces now cover a lot of the walls upon the building at 800 South and 300 West that haven't been painted there, many of them suffered from mental illnesses, and police were responsible for acting poorly and murderously toward those folks and those others that are still painted up on those walls. Had the city poured more money in the past into hiring social workers, for instance, and those trained to help folks with mental illnesses, especially unsheltered folks, then these deaths could have been avoided. And I would hope that it's the aim of every one of you upon city council to avoid future injuries and deaths at the hands of police, who seem to be notoriously, or to have notoriously poor judgment in spontaneous situations. So rather than give an additional $1.4 million from the general fund to the police, for the many reasons already outlined, even such as this absurd $537,337 for so-called protest costs, I would like the city to fund community organizations that pursue restorative justice within their communities, such as the Rose Park Brown Berets or Decarcerate Utah, or even fund more affordable housing. So please, I'm asking you to remember the promises you made last summer to decrease the police department budget, not increase it. So thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. After James, we have Lisa Hazel, and then Emma Goldman, followed by Amy Hawkins. Lisa, you're unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Lisa. It's with an S like Sam. Hazel. I am here to ask the City Council to vote no on this Amendment 7 grant. So I think that the police need to be evaluated based on how well they serve the vulnerable among us. This includes ensuring police are using compassion to create peace and loving attitudes of generosity. Additionally, garbage cans and porta potties need to be provided as basic utilities because they are the most vulnerable among us. These people are our neighbors, and whether we like it or not, these people, if we were on the street as folks with shelter, we would want to be treated with an attitude of generosity. And in order for that to happen, basic utilities need to be provided, and expenses in the police department need to be earmarked for reform efforts rather in terms of being, well, the police need to be rewarded for de-escalating stressful and harmful situations, to minimize the use of guns and other weapons, including training and promotions based on how many situations were de-escalated rather than breaking out into a physical and or psychologically damaging situation for both the officers and the vulnerable shelterless residents that are involved in this. I'm very upset to hear that the police is asking for a $650,000 grant to continue hurting people. This is unacceptable, and we need to be earmarking this money, the $650,000, to de-escalation of stressful and harmful situations to people, because this is what we would want if we were in this situation and if we were in the most vulnerable situation.
Time.
All of us.
Thank you. Now we have Emma Goldman, followed by Amy Hawkins, and then John Ribbons. Emma, you are unmuted.
Awesome, thank you. I am here today to ask y'all to please vote against this budget amendment. I am a housing case manager, and I have been for over 3 years. I will often walk into situations that police have to ask for backup in, and I go into these situations completely unarmed. I have done ride-alongs with the police. I have participated in the resource fairs put on a few days ahead of the abatements. I have played cat and mouse with the police as I try to get folks experiencing homelessness into housing after the abatements. I am going to say this once, and I refuse to hear any argument against it. The police are a barrier to housing. I don't care how many host officers you have. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many times all of y'all are complacent in the abatement of encampments. I don't care how many times y'all claim to be building more affordable housing. Building another shelter will not cure this crisis either. The crisis is capitalism. I am disappointed and hurt. I do not, nor have I ever felt as though the police or local government have had me in their best interest. And this is a clear message, y'all still don't. Also, in regards to the protest police funding, y'all already passed legislation that allows individuals in cars to run over protesters, and now you want to give more money to police to brutalize said protesters. I just ask that y'all please stop being complacent in the face of oppression.
Sorry, 1 second. Thank you. Now we have Amy Hawkins, followed by John Ribbons, and then George Chapman. Amy, you're unmuted.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Terrific, thank you. Hello, City Council members, staff members, and Mayor Mendenhall. Thank you for your service and your time this evening. My name is Amy J. Hawkins. I'm chair of the Ballpark Community Council, and I signed on tonight to express my support for the police funding that's being discussed tonight as part of Budget Amendment number 7. I know that not every camp is the same, but I did want to relate our neighborhood's experience with a camp that was located across the street from Challenger School at about 1400 South Main Street. This camp was in place for months, and it was finally abated on January 14th this year. But during the months that it was in place, I attended multiple meetings with administration from the Challenger School, including Headmaster Marcia Garcia, to listen to her concerns about how children as young as 4 who attend the preschool were exposed to the regular drug use that happened at that camp. Soon after, one of my neighbors took a video on his phone of open meth use at the camp. We were told, thankfully, that an abatement would take place, and my neighbors showed up to express their thanks and support when the camp was finally abated in January. I understand that experiencing homelessness is not a crime, but it can't be okay to live in a park strip across the street from a school and regularly openly smoke meth. Our neighborhood was grateful that that particular camp was abated. Maybe our experience was completely unique, but we also read news articles about how a homicide suspect who was identified but not arrested, and then we read that that suspect frequents homeless camp cities in Salt Lake City. Our neighborhoods are feeling public safety effects of additional unsheltered people, but even more so that those unsheltered people are feeling the effects of the criminal element that infiltrates our neighborhood and preys on them. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now we have John Ribbons, followed by George Chapman, and then Annie Charles. John, you are unmuted.
Say, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Cool. So first off, I want to say, if this is coincidental, excuse me. But as a member of Wasatch Tenants United, I think it's pretty heinous and cynical to attach funding associated with the cost of police hospitalizing protesters over the summer, and to increase funding with abatements with also grants from HUD to increase housing resources. Just seems extremely cynical. Seems like an intentional move to try to split people who are standing together in organizational unity on the left in the city. I'll just say I live less than 3 minutes walk from Fleet Block. If I look out my window right now, I can see a lot of people experiencing homelessness. Unlike, people like, the sections represented by groups like the Ballpark Community Council, I live in this. I don't live up the street. I don't live in a bougie side of town. And I don't live in a little enclave that's afraid of the homeless. This is my community. In this neighborhood, there's probably as many houses unhoused. And when these abatements happen, it feels like someone came through our community and tore it up. There's people all over the place. There's people who need to find new blankets for the night, new tents for the night. And very often it falls on just like the good graces of people in the area to like not call the police when someone's sleeping in the doorway. I had to give someone water the other day. It's not, the city should be making the existing camps as stable, safe, comfortable as possible. They should be giving safe injection sites. They should be offering needle exchanges. They should be offering, you need to acknowledge the fact that abatements has been a strategy for years now. How long ago was Take Shelter, where activists set up all kinds of resources, housing, warming stations in the middle of the winter, and the cops came through and tore it up, beat protesters, shot rubber bullets at us. This was in 2019. And then over the summer, the cops spend an entire summer hospitalizing just people from working class neighborhoods for the most part. The nights when things got really hairy, it was because people were actually angry. It was people from the working class side of town, not just students who regularly come out and protest. And the cops spent, I guess, $500,000 shooting us with rubber bullets and almost running us over with medvac vehicles. It's very upsetting.
Thank you. Now we will have George Chapman, followed by Annie Charles, and then Devin Boyle. George, you are
Can you hear
unmuted.
me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay, I support BAM 7, except for D5, which is the local Uber-like transit system that UTA subsidizes at over $35 per rider per ride. The cost would be better used for a $1 bus fare. And I need to remind the council that the Southwest County area is much larger than the Salt Lake City area discussed. UTA gets about $1.6 million a month in cash fares. And I noticed that the upper avenues and East Bench are included, but avenues is within a couple of blocks of buses, except for the millionaires with multi-million-dollar homes. And talk about unequitable, that's a really unequitable service you're proposing. So implement a $1 bus fare, tell UTA to use the COVID funds that are allowed to be used for fares to be used for fares, and stop worrying about if millionaires can conveniently get to a bus. Emphasizing this, stop worrying about millionaires. And please add more COVID funds to clean up and police support to remove the criminal elements that prey on the homeless. Amy Hawkins is right. Ballpark Park is hurting because of the problems with criminal elements embedded in the homeless. I urge the city to allow camping in a safe, low-barrier area near homeless services. And camping on the sidewalk is a sad commentary on a society. Despite rumors to the contrary, Sugar House does have crime. And thank you to the council members that have devoted your careers in and out of government to the homeless. I know you care, despite rumors to the contrary. Thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Now we have Annie Charles, followed by Devin Boyle, and then Emily Allworth. Annie, you are unmuted.
Thanks. A couple of things before I comment no on 7 was that you didn't give a very in-depth description this time, which I've noted you have started doing, and I find that really discouraging, kind of listing out what this bill looks like. But Robert, you've been doing a really good job at communicating when people are going, so way to go. Generally, no on 7. I think it's a really bad idea to be increasing the police budget after just last year you had committed to reducing it. You've actually gone over what you originally said you were going to do, which is super discouraging. It just feels like you're saying things to appease people in the moment and then slowly going back on that over time. I don't think we should be specifically funding the abatements. This is against the CDC guidelines, again, and actively traumatic for people to be displaced and to have police even in their presence after a lot of the trauma people have faced at the hands of police. I work with people every day who have experienced homeless, who I'm working with for substance abuse issues, and the police have been actively harmful for them, and I'm having to heal the trauma that they have caused. It's exhausting. I want to be able to give a more in-depth comment tonight, but I'm not able to because I'm exhausted from the work I'm having to do, reversing the damage the police have done to people. It just, please stop doing that. It doesn't make sense. Even the police chief said, it's like a nail and everything's a hammer and it doesn't work effectively. You're just funneling money into something that's causing more damage and harm to people. If we don't want people using outside of schools, let's give them places to do that. Let's give them the resources to be able to fight substance abuse, or give the resources to this root issues of it, like childhood trauma, abuse. Let's resolve these deeper seated issues instead of just funneling money into the police who aren't actually helping the issue. Yeah. That's it.
Thank you. Devin Boyle appears to have left. So next we have Emily Allworth, followed by Devin O'Donnell, and then Dave Kelly. Emily,
Hi.
you're
Hi there. I would also like to please urge the council to vote no on this budget amendment. I do not appreciate police budgets being actively hidden within larger budgets. I think it's very disingenuous. I understand that some things need to be bundled, but not bringing up the clear conflict of interests when tying funds from things like HUD and things meant to help with the unsheltered people in Salt Lake and helping them. Instead, you are using the police budget increases as a way to attack those very same people. I understand that there is crime that is often associated with the unsheltered, but instead of trying to address those issues, like people with substance abuse issues, giving them places to have safe injection sites, or having more resources put into healthcare systems that allow people to have medical problems addressed rather than trying to cope on the streets with available medications that are not safe. You are instead punishing people and creating a system in which people are defunded of the money that they have and the police are funded, and people are not able to get back into housing. They are instead forced into a cycle. And this is a huge issue that is going to continue to be a problem in Salt Lake. People are going to, that you put into jail, are going to come out of jail. People who displace are going to gather somewhere else. This isn't something that can be fixed with a revolving door. This needs to be addressed at its root causes, and people need to be cared for with compassion. And that is how to create a better system for everyone. So I really urge you, do not vote yes on this, and do not listen to the people.
Thank you. Now we have Devin Boyle, followed by, Devin O'Donnell, followed by Dave Kelly, and then Martha Castillo. Devin, sorry. Yeah, is it Devin O'Donnell? My bad. Devin, you are unmuted.
Great, thank you for your time. So yes, I'm also asking you all to vote against this amendment as it stands. Regarding the protest costs, it is absolutely wild to me, given the massive amount of funding that they've received from the city, that we're asking them, that they're asking for more to, as people have said, continue to oppress us. The protests were wild, seeing violence come from police unprovoked when they were not being approached or attacked, and events prior to this, seeing people pushed against glass for peacefully standing inside granted inside a building, but just protesting without any violence. So yeah, that's wild to me, given the number of times you have heard people call for a defunding or reduced funding of the police to even consider putting that in. And also, yes, seeing the money going towards abatements rather than giving the unsheltered services they need. As people have mentioned, safe ways to access drug treatment services and other things that they need. You're essentially just taking everything that these people already have, the little that they have, and making them start over when they very quickly will be out of a shelter, adding more trauma to what they're already experiencing. It's very bold of you to take costs from COVID funding to build Wi-Fi tables and then not give any funding to help the unsheltered. It's just mind-boggling to me. So yes, asking you to vote against this as it stands. Also, just a quick comment to say this publicly, but Mayor Mendenhall, your comment in last meeting, after we all spoke about the the rezone amendment, saying that no one understood it and that we clearly were misguided, was hurtful and offensive to our intelligence and our desire to assist our community. That's all. Thank you for your time, for giving me time.
Now we have Dave Kelly, followed by Martha Castillo, and then Paul Johnson. Dave, you are unmuted. Dave? We will troubleshoot with Dave and come back to him. Now we have Martha Castillo, followed by Paul Johnson, and then Kimberlyn Correa. Martha, you are unmuted.
Hi, thank you. Thank you all for your time. So I am also here today to ask that you vote against this amendment as it stands. And we come to you so consistently as community leaders asking for change, and specifically around this issue of the police and the damage that they do. They do a lot of damage. And as someone who's worked in social work and in healthcare for a long time, I can say that from experience. When are we going to choose to be a society that can be upheld by the way we treat the most vulnerable? And that is our homeless, and that is our citizens, the people out there for using their rights as they should, because this system is unjust to them and unfair. Why are we funding the same people who hurt and kill us? Why is that happening? It's like it's not enough to protest every week for a full summer for it to get across to this council that we need less police and more resources for our community. I yield my time. Thank you.
Great. Now we have Paul Johnson, followed by Kimberly Correa, and then Shelley Bodley. Paul, you are unmuted.
Good evening. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I'm Paul Johnson. I'm the chair of the Central Ninth Community Council. Thank you, members of the council, and to the mayor for your time this evening. I live right around the corner from the Fleet Block, and I can see the encampments from my office window where I am right now. I feel and live the effects these encampments bring to the surrounding neighborhoods. I support budget amendment number 7. We are living in unprecedented times, and those who live near these areas deserve to feel safe in our homes and neighborhoods. I do not discount there are many good folks living in these encampments, but it's unreasonable for surrounding neighborhoods to be expected to just put up with and not seek further public safety when our communities feel lawless. Please pass this amendment. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Now we have Kimberly Correa. Kimberlyn, you are unmuted.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Good evening. I'm Kim Correa. I'm the CEO of the Salt Lake City-based nonprofit, The In-Between. I wanted to express my opposition to this budget amendment. To me, it's a math problem. We're in the middle of an unemployment and housing crisis that's exacerbated by a severe shortage of shelter beds. And camping happens for 2 reasons: the lack of shelter beds or a person's unwillingness to go into a shelter. And if you want to reduce encampments, we need to address both these issues. We can use this money to increase the number of emergency shelter beds, for example, by having some of the winter overflow shelters stay open. We could also use some of this money to establish an organized, supervised, and peaceful camping area that has the needed facilities such as toilets, showers, garbage, and the oversight that people need to feel safe. So that they can go to sleep and not fear that they'll be molested or robbed of all their belongings. The money could also be used to fund case management services to help the clients actually exit the camp into stable housing or even to get a spot in a homeless resource center. So in my experience, once a homeless person feels safe, they make a dramatic change for the positive, like their whole personality changes. The stress of living on the streets seems to be comparable to that of living in a war zone. And I recommend that before making any measures to, further traumatize the people living in these camps, that you might go and live in a camp for a day or a couple days or a week just to see what they go through and to see how this can really have a devastating impact on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Shelley Bodley, followed by Terrell Bodley, and then Jessica Eichbauer. Shelley, you are unmuted.
Hello. As a longtime resident of Ballpark, and I've lived here for about 15 years with my family. If you don't support abatements and camp cleanups by the police, you really probably have never lived Y1. And this is really about compassion, not only for people who are experiencing homelessness, but for people and residents of the city, because these encampments that the previous speaker just said are like war zones. I think that's the perfect description. The homeless, as well as residents of the city, we've been experiencing violence, drugs, assault, feces everywhere, discarded needles everywhere, blatant nudity. My 4-year-old daughter was exposed to a man masturbating out in public twice in the past 2 years. So what about a vulnerable population? What about the innocent children of the city? What about my kids that, walking to school, they see these things? I don't know what to say about it except for that it's just becoming unbearable in our city. I think peaceful camping is in a specific kind of defined area is a good solution. I think housing is the solution. I completely agree with that. Getting people into treatment is a great solution, but we don't have that yet. And so in the meantime, public safety really, really has to be number one. We need to keep people in those camps. We can't have them living like that, and we can't be living by them. It's not safe. And it's just really, it's almost causing me to come to the point with my family where living here 15 plus years, I want to move if things don't improve because it is so terrible right now. So when you think about passing this, and I'm in support of it, please think of all the children in this neighborhood that may have voices like me and that may not have voices. Let's protect them. Thank you.
Now we have Tara Bottley, followed by Jessica Eichbauer, and then I believe we have Dave Kelly back. Terrell, you are unmuted.
Yes, hi, I'm Terrell Bottley. I live in the ballpark community. I just want to say I'm for Amendment 7. I think these street camps are not safe for the people sleeping in them. They're not safe for the people around. And we need to get this resolved. So I'm for it. Thank you.
Now we have Jessica Eichbauer, followed by Dave Kelly. Jessica, you are unmuted.
Hi, I'm against this because I am a victim of police brutality at one of the protests, and I have suffered mental health illness because of it. I have been evicted from my apartment because of it. I do not think you should put the money into the police, who have given me every single one of my mental health episodes has been caused by someone not believing me. And every time someone has not believed me, it's been a police officer. Police officers are horrible. I am a former special ed paraprofessional. SLC PD shot Lyndon Cameron. He's a 13-year-old child. I was his para. I calmed him down. I never had to shoot him. Don't give these assholes more money. I'm against it.
Now we have Dave Kelly. Dave, you are unmuted. I apologize, council members. 1 minute, 1 second. Dave, you are unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. First, thank you, council members. Thank you, Mayor Mendenhall. Thank you guys for your service. Thank you guys for your willingness to put yourselves out there and to try to make our city better. I'm in support of budget amendment number 7, specifically for the camp abatements. As has been mentioned, it's about pulling and getting the criminal elements who prey upon those who are less fortunate and those who are homeless. That's really what the abatements entail, right? Is getting it to where we can get to the people who truly need help and truly need a helping hand and a shoulder to cry on and a hand up, and being able to help, where without the abatements, right, we go back to 2014, 2015 with 2,500 people camping in the Rio Grande area, where it was an open drug market, it was an open sex market, it was everything going on was happening there. And that is why I really strongly support and urge you guys to vote yes on Budget Amendment 7, is to allow that public safety, which it's not just for the people in the encampments, it's for the community at large. It's for everybody to be able to walk down the street and to be able to feel safe and secure as they're walking around. Thank you for your service and thank you for your time.
We actually have one more person, Emsley Minch. You are now unmuted.
Hi, this is Ainsley Minch, and I'm calling to ask you to vote no on Amendment 7. I just want to kind of put this in perspective, what you guys would be voting for. You guys would be voting to fund the abatements of camps, which destroy the lives of people who live here. They are your residents. They are the people that you represent. And they are the most vulnerable members of our community. And you guys are voting to, if you vote yes, you're voting to traumatize that community. We've tried abatements before, and it hasn't worked, obviously. People have tried policing the issue of homelessness into non-existence. That hasn't worked. And you know, maybe we don't have like treatment centers or things like that, or places where people can, you know, not share needles, but like, you know, have safe injection sites or something like that. But we could have that. But instead, you guys are choosing to fund the camp abatements, which leave people with almost nothing, with literally nothing. I've seen camp abatements where they brought in bulldozers or like 30 cop cars. Why is that necessary to further traumatize a community that is the most vulnerable and marginalized? I want to emphasize, you represent these people. They aren't just homeless people that live here. Like, they are your constituents. They are the people you represent. And if you vote yes on this amendment, you are voting to traumatize those residents. Thank you.
We do have one more person, Emma Roberts. Emma, you are unmuted.
Great. Thank you for putting me back on the list. I'd like to also say, like, please vote no on Amendment 7. And I believe that the council agreeing to put more money into the police department after there's been a year of protesting and asking for defunding the police and reallocating those resources and money towards literally anything else is so unbelievably tone deaf to me. And to my fellow citizens who are demonizing the unsheltered community and saying that they're harming our children and save my poor rich white baby because there's someone experiencing homelessness is also completely privileged and tone deaf. And I don't think you people even understand that an abatement is simply getting rid of these people's possessions and moving them to someone else's neighborhood. It is not solving a problem. It is pushing them into a different neighborhood and traumatizing them so that some other privileged white asshole can also be afraid of them. I yield my time.
Those are all the people we have for this item.
Thank you, Orlando, and thank you to everybody who commented today. At this point, I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the council close the public hearing and refer the item to a future date for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mono and a second by Councilmember Wharton. I will go ahead and roll call this. Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoro.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes unanimous. We will move on to our second scheduled public hearing. Oh, that was our second one. Excuse me. We will move on to our third and last scheduled public hearing, which is item B3, and in regard to the HUD grant. And I will turn the time over to Council Staff Ben Ludke for a short introduction.
Each year, the city receives 4 grants directly from the U.S. Housing and Urban Development Department. This year, a total of $6.7 million is available across the 4 grants, but over $9 million was applied for. There were 56 applications. The council receives 2 sets of funding recommendations, one from the resident advisory boards and another from the mayor. The council makes the final funding decision for how to award these funds to all of the applicants. The full funding log, which shows the applications and the different funding recommendations, are available in attachment 2. For commenters, please state which grant and application is being referenced at the start of your comments. This helps orient council members to see which applicants have which commenters. Thank you.
Sorry, everyone. We will, thank you, Ben, and let's start with our first public comment if we can. Isaac.
Yes, sorry, didn't realize I was muted. First up, we will have Michelle Flynn. It's around 10 people. First up, Michelle Flynn, followed by Angela Chapman, and then Sasha Harvey. Michelle, you are unmuted.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chair, council members, and Mayor. I appreciate you providing some time for us to speak to these requests, and a timely time it is because we are facing a lot of challenges in our fight to end homelessness in our community. I first want to mention, I know this is a competitive process, but I want you to know how closely we are all working together to end homelessness and how much we support the requests from our partner agencies as well. It is just as important to us that all of the resource centers and outreach are funded as our own programs. So I want you to know the strong collaboration we have amongst our providers and city and county and state. We had a number of requests before you tonight to support the Road Homes Resource Center and housing programs. I know it was a challenging task before the committee, and we appreciate their work in selecting which ones to recommend. And thank you, Mayor, for your efforts as well. I'll speak just very briefly to the areas that we applied for. One is for the Gail Miller Resource Center, which is the resource center in Salt Lake serving single men and single women that the Road Home began as manager November 1st. And that has been a really wonderful opportunity for us to work within Salt Lake City and in partnership with all the partners in the city and to ensure that we are continuing to provide that safe, low barrier option for people who are in need of shelter. We also have requested funds to support Palmer Court, which is on the other end of our scope, and that's permanent supportive housing for people who were formerly chronically homeless, men, single women, and families with children. And if you support the mayor's request, we will be able to do some much needed work on that property, including adding a dog run for the tenants, putting in a new boiler, and resurfacing the parking lot and those types of. Thank you.
Now we have, Angela Chapman, followed by Sasha Harvey, and then Michael Ackerlow. Angela, you are unmuted.
Hi, this is Angela Chapman with Wasatch Homeless Health. We are the 4th Street Clinic. I'm speaking regarding the Community Development Block Grant. We requested $119,770,000. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank both the council members and Mayor Mendenhall. I certainly realize it's not an easy decision for the members and for Mayor Mendenhall regarding these funds. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Angela Chapman, and I am the CFO at 4th Street Clinic. I have been in this role for 13 months. During this time, I have seen the amazing work our staff accomplishes every day in providing vital and essential care to our homeless community, including behavioral health services. From my office window, I see patients coming into our parking lot tent clinic that has been operational for COVID safety since March 2020. However, I am also aware that there are hundreds of men and women that will not or cannot come into the clinic due to a variety of barriers. These individuals are the people we all see, and yet we do not want to see living in the pop-up tent encampments as we travel through our city. These are the community members that just last week, Mayor Mendenhall stated in the Salt Lake Tribune interview as the street camping population in Utah's capital city appears to have risen to levels higher than we've seen, I think, ever in the past, and that she sees a need for additional shelters space in the state. However, building a new shelter takes time, and what 4th Street Clinic offers today on the street is the start to a healthier life that can greatly assist in getting individuals into treatment and fostering relationships. We have a medical van that we are committed to going out 4 days a week. We have a team that includes an integrated behavioral health specialist component that we are ready to roll out. The added behavioral health services align with this.
Now we have Sasha Harvey, followed by Michael Ackerlow and Sahil Oberoi. Sasha, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sasha Harvey, and I'm the Executive Director at Salt Lake Donated Dental Services. Over 30 years ago, local dentist Dr. Ralph Montgomery started Salt Lake Donated Dental Services to offer quality, comprehensive dental treatment for those in Salt Lake City without access to care. Having lost all of his teeth in his early 20s due to living in poverty, Dr. Montgomery understood firsthand how debilitating it is to lose your teeth and not have the means to replace them. So Donated Dental was created with a unique approach to resolving dental neglect. We not only assist our patients in restoring their oral health, but also in maintaining it. Unfortunately, the effects of the pandemic have the effects of the pandemic on the public health organizations that serve low-income and homeless populations have been devastating. 2 family dental plan locations that cared for the underserved closed due to the state budget cuts. 4th Street Clinic temporarily lost their dentist and could not afford dental care. Out of 5 community health centers that used to offer dental services, only 2 still do. The average wait for dental care in the remaining community clinics is 2 to 3 months. This puts a tremendous strain on the facilities like Donated Dental, as we have the responsibility to continue fulfilling our mission, especially in the times of hardships and adversity. I'm hopeful that during the 21-22 fiscal year, we will see a positive change in terms of access to care, but I also know that it is incredibly important to support organizations that have remained one constant that people could rely on, because we have seen what happens without community support. To meet the continuous and growing need for dental care in our neighborhoods, we are respectfully requesting $50,000 from Cdbg to enable our staff and volunteers to continue providing dental care for Salt Lake City's homeless. Salt Lake City has been a gracious supporter of our programs, for which we're continually grateful, and we believe that together we can enhance and improve the quality of life for those who need it most. We look forward to continuing our partnership during the upcoming.
Now we have Michael Ackerlow, followed by Sahil Oberoi, and then Janice Kimball. Michael, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. I'm Mike Ackerlow, the CEO of the Community Development Corporation of Utah. I want to thank Mayor Mendenhall and the advisory boards for fully recommending our request for our down payment assistance program. As you may be aware, CDCU and the city have partnered for a very long time on this program, providing funding to several hundred households in our city. Using these funds, we've been able to provide up to $14,000 in assistance to low-income households who are purchasing a home in Salt Lake City. We are seeing a low inventory of homes and very high sales prices, making it incredibly difficult for many, especially low-income households, to purchase a home. The Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard states that the most significant barrier to home ownership is a lack of savings for down payment and closing costs. Down payment assistance also addresses the large disparities in home ownership experienced by racial and ethnic minorities who have not benefited from acquired wealth that is typically seen in white households. By funding this program, we are able to address these racial disparities and inequity in Salt Lake City, and to help our low-income households enjoy the benefits of home ownership. We appreciate your consideration of our request, and thank you.
Now we have Sahil Oberoi, followed by Janice Kimball, and then Jason Wheeler. Sahil, you are unmuted.
Thanks, Robert. My name is Sahil Oberoi. I'm the Director of Housing and Case Management with Utah Community Action. First off, I want to thank City Council Mayor Mendenhall to allow us to have a platform to speak a bit about our programs. UC has applied for 4 separate programs, 3 of which are dealing with housing. As Mayor Mendenhall mentioned, there is a deficit of housing available in Salt Lake City, and we appreciate the recommendations the CDCIP board and the mayor has made. One slight modification we would request to the recommendations that have been made is for $19,784 be moved from our rapid rehousing program to the diversion program. I know that there were some recommendations. The recommendations changed the allocations that we wanted. We want to make sure a diversion program is fully funded. This program takes place at the Weekend Day Center, and as we see the homeless population increasing, we want to make sure that folks have access to this program. The goal of this program is to help those that are unsheltered get connected to other resources and find alternatives to shelter. We have been able to provide alternatives to shelter for over 200 individuals this past year, and we're hoping to do so by fully funding this diversion program. UCA has received additional funding from the city for rapid rehousing, and we believe that we would be able to meet the outcomes needed for rapid rehousing for those that are unsheltered. So we would just ask for that slight change in the budget recommendation. Thank you.
Now we have Janice Kimball, followed by Jason Wheeler, and then Sean McMillan. Janice, you are unmuted.
Thank you. I want to thank the Mayor, Advisory Board, City Council, and City Hand Team for their recommendation of our request for tenant-based rental assistance under the Housing for People with AIDS program. We've had a long partnership with the city, and this grant will allow us to house 62 individuals or households and provide a modest amount for barrier removal. With that, I yield my time. Thank you.
Now we have Jason Wheeler, followed by Sean McMillan, and then Jocelyn White. Jason, you are unmuted.
Yes, Madam Chair, Council members, and Mayor Mendenhall. Thanks for the chance to speak with you this evening. I'm the Executive Director with Assist Inc., and I'm speaking this evening regarding our request for Cdbg funds to support our emergency home repair, accessibility design assistance, and community design programs. Over the past several years, our organization has seen steadily increasing need for these critical services with a growing gap in services each year. Housing costs are quickly outpacing earning capacity, which is leading to an increase in multi-generational households and decreased discretionary income. While these pressures are felt by all, they are particularly for those in the lower income brackets in our community. And as you can imagine, this past year has really exacerbated these needs, as the cost of construction and building materials have doubled and even tripled in some cases. Our organization has been able to meet many of these needs in stride, including structural repairs for households impacted by last March's earthquake, and replacing electrical services for individuals whose power masts and breakers were damaged during September's windstorm. We've also leveraged our design capacity to provide architectural services for other nonprofit agencies, including a new bathroom, ramp, and laundry facilities for the in-between, and a significant remodel that's currently underway at the city-owned building currently operated by the Salt Lake Acting Company. This remodel includes the addition of an elevator that will allow persons of all abilities to benefit from SLAC's community-oriented productions. The mayor has recommended that Assist receive $700,000 in Cdbg funding for the 2021 fiscal year. While this represents a significant increase over past year's funding levels, as an organization, we look forward to using this funding to offset increased construction costs, to help address current unmet needs in our community, and to continue to bolster the stability of Salt Lake City's naturally occurring affordable housing. We're grateful for this recommendation and are excited to continue to serve the citizens of our community in years to come. Thank you.
Now we have Sean McMillan, followed by Jocelyn White, and then Sandra Stokes. Sean, you are unmuted.
Thank you. I'm Sean McMillan. I'm the Executive Director of First Step House. I want to thank Mayor Mendenhall, her staff, the Salt Lake City Council, and the committees that were involved in the process. this very difficult process for CDBG and ESG one-year action plan 2021-2022. At First Step House, each program, each service is linked, integrated with each of the others. This is powerfully true in the instance of the Homeless Resource Center program, the Peer Support Services program, and the Employment Preparation and Placement program. The First Step House Resource Center program links individuals who have expressed interest in behavioral health treatment services to mental health professionals, as well as peer support specialists, who then in turn link individuals to community and behavioral health treatment services in the community. They in turn, those behavioral health treatment services in turn link individuals with our employment preparation and placement program that helps an individual overcome obstacles and achieve employment and sustain that employment once they're prepared to return to the community. While difficult decisions were made this year regarding funding, First Step House is very grateful for the funding that we did receive. Should there be an opportunity to make the funding request whole, that would be very much appreciated by First Step House. Thank you.
Now we have Jocelyn White, followed by Sandra Stokes, and then Lisa Hazel. Jocelyn, you are unmuted.
Good evening. My name is Jocelyn White, and I'm representing South Valley Services tonight. I'm speaking about our housing assistance program, and we are honored to be under consideration for $100,000 in funding as per the mayor's recommendation. So a bit of context about the services we offer and the need for them. In Utah, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will experience domestic violence in their lifetimes. And since 2000, 42% of homicides in Utah were domestic violence related. And as you know, Salt Lake City at various points during the pandemic saw a 51% increase in domestic violence related calls to the police. So there's a clear need. And victims often face an impossible choice. They must either face homelessness or return to their abuser, which means housing assistance and its corresponding case management are key to helping domestic violence victims and thereby preventing homicides. With this funding, we anticipate serving 100 individuals with case management services, and 35 households will receive housing assistance, 50 households will receive danger assessment, 50 households will receive housing referrals to partnering housing programs, and 50 individuals will work with a case manager to create an action plan to ensure safety and stability. For context, most of our households continue seeking supportive case management services for 12 months after being housed. Domestic violence affects our entire community, and together we can provide survivors the services they need to live safe, independent, and fulfilled lives free from abuse. Thank you for your consideration.
Now we have Sandra Stokes, followed by Lisa Hazel, and then Ann Charles. Sandra, you are unmuted.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. Again, my name is Sandra Stokes, and I want to say good evening, council members, Madam Chair, and Mayor Mendenhall. I am the Chief Mission Impact Officer at YWCA Utah, and I'm speaking to our Women in Jeopardy program, to which we've requested a funding amount of $98,035 in CBDG funding. I wanted to highlight that this funding will help us provide critical essential shelter staffing infrastructure for our 181-bed licensed domestic violence program and residential shelter. We provide trauma-informed supportive services, wraparound service, and crisis management. Just to give you a quick snapshot, last year we provided 311 women and children with wraparound services. 260 of those folks were from Salt Lake City. A quick snapshot for our survivor-driven housing model. Our survivor-driven housing case manager and coordinator has assisted 195 clients with mobile advocacy and assisted 263 clients with securing long-term housing. So what does that look like? I just want to give you a quick snapshot. In the last 5 weeks alone, our housing and economic empowerment case manager has slated 23 families for housing and placed seven families into homes in just 5 weeks. And that is because survivors of domestic violence are immediately and on the spot rendered homelessness and experiencing homelessness at vast rates. Our shelter advocates and that infrastructure help keep the women and children on campus safe. And so if we cannot have the funding that we've requested, we will have a staff shortage. And that shelter advocate staff, they are monitoring cameras, watching gates, and making calls when perpetrators actually come on campus. So it is critical that we're able to maintain safety and, more important, provide quality wraparound services. So we would just like to request that you reconsider our funding amount and really think about the staffing numbers and the infrastructure we need for our folks experiencing homelessness. Our shelter advocates are working 24/7, and they're there anytime, day, or middle of the night when a woman and her children show up needing safety and needing to get inside of our gates, and working with other case managers to also get them housed.
Time.
So consider.
Now we have Lisa Hazel, followed by Ann Charles, and then Emily Allworth. Lisa, you are unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. For this, for the Cdbg, I would like to see funding go toward the in-between. I noticed in the grant recommendations that is not something that the mayor has recommended, nor the CDCIP. However, this is something that I think the most vulnerable in the homeless community needs. This is something that is, I don't think this is excusable, because this is something that is going to help the homeless have a better end of life experience. That's not something we can really correct because these folks are dying. Additionally, I am for the funding for the Wasatch Homeless Health Care Doing Business as the 4th Street Clinic. I was listening to the person that commented on that. I think that needs to be funded completely, because oral health, with the lack thereof, it can cause a lot of problems, both mentally and physically. I know because I broke my jaw, and not having oral health for a complete set of oral health is very damaging to one's mental health in general. So I am in support of that. And I think the way to do it is to take $5,000 out of each of these Cdbg public services, take $5,000 out of each of these and put it towards.
Now we have Annie Charles, followed by Emily Allsworth. Annie, you are unmuted.
Thanks. After hearing everybody talk and looking through this bill, I find it really upsetting that you're making these really good organizations fight for funding while you're giving all of this. Hey, quiet. Sorry, can you pause for a minute? I'll be right back.
Bobby, do you want to go on to another speaker and come back?
So after that, we have Emily Allworth. I believe they're using the same line, though. We can try that.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, so next up we have...
Oh, sorry. Annie Charles just said that she is good to speak now.
Okay. Here we go. Annie, you're unmuted.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. That was my dog. But yeah, making people, really good organizations, fight over money after you're going to give the police millions of dollars for doing the work that these organizations can do and are effective at it. I've heard so many organizations talk about all the people that they're helping. I personally work for Odyssey House. They have no funding given. The road home should have more funding. The Volunteers of America should have more funding. The YWCA should have more funding. First Step House should. 4th Street Clinic, like the dental care. All of these things are super important and should get the funding that they deserve. And to give all of that to the police who are ineffective and harmful is really discouraging. And I think you should really reconsider it. Thanks.
So now we do have Emily Allworth. Emily, you are unmuted.
Hi there. I also do not appreciate this weird Thunderdome approach. It's confusing to me that there are people calling from amazing organizations that are working directly with the unsheltered to give them resources that the government will not provide them for free, and instead they are trying to take it upon themselves to house people and actually get them into situations that it seems like every commenter here would prefer for those people to not be on the street and to instead be in safe and stable homes. There are a lot of amazing organizations out there in Salt Lake, and we could have the money be going towards those nonprofits and towards community organizations that are helpful to those communities. The police not only have enough funding, but they're consistently getting more and more funding. And what I don't understand is why we can't reallocate that money into these programs. It's not just about defunding the police, it's also about giving resources to areas of our community that are creating real change and funding these organizations more fully. I'm not talking about any individual. I'm saying each one should get more of what they're asking for, which is the money that taxpayers pay in order to fix these problems. And you as city council have the solution in front of you. You have amazing organizations from talented people in our community, and I hope that you can increase funding to them. And that would show the people that you are listening to them and respecting the wishes of the people of Salt Lake to not have as many unhoused people without resources, and instead give the resources and support to people who are unable to get it for themselves. And I think that funding this as fully as possible would be the best case scenario. Thank you. I yield my time.
Now we have Marta Castillo.
Isaac?
Oh, yeah.
This is Amy, Councilmember Fowler. So I just want to quickly remind everyone that this particular item is simply in regards to the federal funding, and that there are federal guidelines by which we have to follow within each of those different, I don't want to say silos, but groups, the Cdbg, the ESG, the home funds, and the HOPWA. And so as we're talking about the funding, we're really, because we're doing the public hearings on each of these different items, this particular public hearing is in regard to the federal funding and the way that the federal fund guidelines that we have to follow are being recommended. We certainly all wish that with the federal funds that we could fund all of these, but unfortunately we can't. And so if we can kind of focus on the federal funding part of this public hearing, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fowler. We do have one more speaker. Marta Castillo, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. So I'm really, I understand exactly where Amy's coming from, and I understand what she means. And I want to echo that. Yes, I know that you have a process that you have to do with federal funding, but what we're hearing is these local entities are desperate for funds. They're needing funds to do that work, to help limit camps that exist so we don't have to do camp abatements. And I think that maybe like we could have more of a resolution here if there was a combination of this federal funding and this funding that clearly your community doesn't want to go to the police. Out of all the comments we've heard, more have been against this, funding the police than funding them. And even the people who want them funded are saying that they don't want people living in the conditions they're living in. No one wants this in the community for anyone. And Can we just maybe look at that as a resolution to say, instead of giving this money to the police, in addition to these federal funds, we could sponsor these other people and maybe see how those things can change and see if we get more progress, because we're not getting progress with the police and abatements. Thank you.
We have another speaker to this item. Kimberlyn Correa, you are now unmuted.
Okay, hi. Thank you. Hi again, everybody. I am Kim Correa, CEO of the In-Between, which provides end-of-life care and recuperative care housing for people experiencing homelessness. I'm referencing our Cdbg grant for $101,200, which was not recommended for funding. 85% of our clients are from Salt Lake City, and many are referred to us from the Salt Lake City Community Connection Center, direct from the unsheltered streets. Our clients are high needs and costly to support. Therefore, I submit that our program does merit Cdbg funding from Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City strives to be a compassionate city. It's also the heart of the homeless population. It's one thing to see people on the streets who appear physically fit. However, it's emotionally distressing to see people on the streets who are physically suffering. This visible human suffering takes its toll on Salt Lake City's image. I hear more and more that people aren't going downtown because it's too difficult to witness what's going on there. And this is really not what any of us want. The In-Between removes the most afflicted people from the streets so that they can either die housed, not homeless, or they can recuperate from their illness or condition. Homeless resource centers don't have the capacity, staffing, or licensing to serve people with high medical needs who require frequent medical transportation, medication management, help with their activities of daily living, and many other specialized medical services on top of traditional case management. And we can't forget that the terminally ill need access to hospice care and 24/7 caregiver support, which can't be provided in a shelter. The In-Between therefore supports the shelter system by serving this population. These people need proper placement at the In-Between, and the In-Between needs your funding to meet our community need for our services. So we request, our program serves 675 days, and that will serve between 6 and as many as 48 clients, depending on their length of stay. So I hope you will reconsider your funding recommendation, because together we can ensure that the most afflicted members of our homeless community have the compassionate care.
We have no more speakers for this item.
Thank you, Isaac, and thank you to everybody who commented this evening. Excuse me. I will look for a motion on this agenda item.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the council close the public hearing and refer the item to a future date for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Johnston and a second by Councilmember Wharton. I will go ahead and roll call this. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros. I think that was a yes, but I think you might have been muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes. Council members, we have one potential action item under agenda item C. After that, we've been here for almost 2 hours. I think a little 10-minute break before we get into general comments and the rest of our agenda. So let's finish up this potential action item. We'll take a little bit of a break with that. So with the potential action item, it is the ordinance, the library budget amendment number 1 for fiscal year 2020-2021. I will look for a motion on this.
Madam Chair, I move the council adopt the ordinance amending the fiscal budget for the library budget of the Salt Lake City to the fiscal year of 2020-2021.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Johnston. Again, I'll go ahead and roll call this. Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdez-Moros,
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes unanimously. With that, let's take, is 5 minutes enough? I just feel like maybe everybody needs a quick little bathroom break. I have a judge that calls it a comfort break, so a quick little comfort break, and meet back here. Thanks, everyone. Started. We are at the comments section, and at this point, there are questions from the City Council to the Mayor. Council members, do we have any questions for Mayor Mendenhall? I don't see any, Mayor, but thank you again for being here. And thank you for your update on the Cdbg as well. Well, the HUD grants, I should say. Next are comments to the City Council. You guys get to hear my script again. We are now at the general comment portion of our agenda for comments about general topics and items that were not scheduled for a hearing tonight. If it was on the agenda earlier, we ask that we've heard your comments on those and that we keep this to a more general comment for a public hearing tonight. We are accepting comments through WebEx. And for those of you whose only option is to call in, staff will be monitoring a separate telephone line. For those just joining, as I shared earlier, the City Council has always had rules of decorum that are created to advance the legitimate government objectives of having an orderly and efficient meeting that moves through the agenda and gives everyone the opportunity to voice their opinions. In person, we have the added benefit of being able to see each other, which helps us get to know our constituents and engage more meaningfully. We still want to provide space for people to feel comfortable and safe to participate. In order to achieve this, our rules of decorum extend from the moment you arrive into our virtual meeting. To help facilitate our comment period, please be respectful. Avoid yelling or making racial slurs, obscene or defamatory remarks. The council respects all points of view, and we welcome new insights. However, using foul language and personal attacks make the public comment forum uncivil and intimidating for others. This meeting is also being broadcast on television and the internet, and so we will more strictly enforce the use of profanity. This will be considered your advance warning against the use of profanity. If someone uses profanity, we will mute your microphone and you will forfeit your opportunity to address the council tonight. If you feel you need to use profanity to express your point, you're welcome to email council members or call comment line at 801-535-7654. In addition, just as we would ask for your name in our in-person meetings, we requested your name during the registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your registered name does not meet this requirement, then our staff will happily use the chat feature to gather that information from you. Robert Nutzman from our staff is helping to moderate the meeting and will be messaging with attendees to coordinate. Please monitor the chat screen for information and/or feel free to message our staff with any questions. Again, that is Robert Nutzman. Isaac Canedo, whose name shows up as Orlando, so I apologize, Isaac, earlier, will be calling the names of those who wish to comment and unmuting lines. Once we open public comment, Isaac will announce 3 names at a time so that people can have some notice and be prepared to speak. When it is your turn to speak, the meeting host will unmute your line. Please state your name and the 2-minute timer will begin. At the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time and your microphone will be muted. As always, if you are unable to complete your full comment within the available time, please feel free to mail the City Council at P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114. Email us at council.comments@slcgov.com or call us at 801-535-7654. And if you don't get that information, Robert, has been putting it in the chat after every comment section. So if you can't find it, it is in the chat. Or if you didn't get it when I said it. With that, I will turn the time over to Isaac to go ahead and start our general comment section. Thank you so much.
Great, no worries about the name. First up, we have Sarah Balland, followed by Annie Charles, and then George Chapman. Sarah, you are unmuted. Sarah? We will troubleshoot with Sarah and move on to, oh, sorry, what was that?
Sorry, can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Apologize for that. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you, Madam Chair, City Council, Mayor Mendenhall. My name is Sarah J. Bland. I live in District 1. I have 2 general comments. I've also emailed the comments I'm about to make in written form to you all and to City Council staff. My first comment is a follow-up to the March 16th Council formal meeting discussing the RMF 30 zoning district item. A little bit into that meeting, you'll recall that Councilmember Johnston made a point of personal privilege and mentioned inclusionary zoning as part of the list of items he would like to see the council explore throughout the continuance of future RMF 30 conversations. I want to express support for the council to follow up on inclusionary zoning at the state level. I hope that Salt Lake City is actively pursuing statewide inclusionary zoning again for the 2022 general legislative session, with the Utah legislative interim right around the corner and the legislative management committee meeting next Wednesday, April 14th at 11 a.m., I believe. To discuss legislative interim committee study item assignments for the year, I and many others will be paying attention to see that inclusionary zoning is one of the study items that cities in Utah take up with the state over the course of the next interim. My second comment is also a follow-up. It is in regards to an email that I have not yet received a response to from my council representative. That's Councilmember Rogers, regarding worker-owned cooperative development in Salt Lake City, especially when the city's economic development department has posted on its webpage a stated commitment to, quote, economic transformation through economic growth that is accessible and equitable for all, and then goes on to talk about investing in and skilling up communities in tech sector work in preparation for the 4th industrial revolution. City Council members, I invite you to refocus the lens through which you are pursuing economic development, because there's nothing transformative about continuing to focus on the skills that folks should have as opposed to what they already do have. I invite you to explore alternative models for what a successful startup ecosystem looks like for historically underserved and marginalized communities, because cooperatives are not a new idea. They've simply not been given their time in the sun to develop like other models have. And invite you and your economic development team, Councilmember Rogers, to reply to my email. Thank you.
Now we have Annie Charles, followed by George Chapman, and then Emily Allworth. Annie, you are muted.
Thanks. I had two things that I wanted to speak on. One was that I believe it was last week or the week before that, I saw that CARES Act funding had been used for the camp abatements. I don't think that was a great use of funds. I don't know why that was approved. I don't think it would qualify for helping people in this pandemic, considering the CDC advises against camp abatements again. And the second thing I wanted to speak on was the shared housing ordinance. So I recently saw that there is no language guaranteeing affordability for these units, and that one of the developers had talked about wanting to start this at $1,300 each. That is completely unaffordable. I could not afford that personally with the income that I'm making, and I don't know why you would create shared housing that is, again, unaffordable. We need to be actually expanding affordable housing for people. That is insane to me, that you would create a shared housing ordinance and then not mandate that it is affordable. I understand there's certain stipulations under Utah law or things like this, but really pushing for that to happen. Otherwise, we're going to be creating substandard housing that is still unaffordable. It still doesn't make sense. And so if you're going to push it forward as is, I don't think it would be a great idea unless we really guarantee that it would be affordable for people and it would make sense. Thank you.
Now we have George Chapman, followed by Emily Allworth, and then Dave Iltis. George, you are now unmuted.
Okay, I'm assuming you can hear me. Again, hundreds may want less police funding, but tens of thousands want more police funding. Communities want more funding for the police, and they want camps with criminal behavior that is exposed to kids abated. Again, hundreds may want to get rid of police, but tens of thousands want more police. If you want less police funding, stop protesting in the street. And because obviously it requires police to make it safe to protest in the street, right? And stop demonizing parents who want their kids to be able to walk safely to school. On ADUs, Amy is right. ADU complaints in this city get business license applications, not just in her area, but in other districts. Instead of action, they get applications. That's really frustrating to neighbors. Thank you, Amy, for mentioning it. ADUs are not a solution to affordable housing. Remember what Nick said. On idling, you are ignoring and emphasizing diesels, their noise, and the inland port. They contribute most of the transportation particulates pollution in this airshed. And why are you legalizing keeping a dog in an idling vehicle for hours? On ranked choice voting without a primary, it results in less chance for an educational debate between the top two candidates. If there are a lot of candidates in the contest, it won't happen. Voters are relegated to looking at candidate marketing materials, which are not really objective. And Darren, not everyone in your district agrees with removing the primary. Those are my comments. Thanks for listening.
Now we have Emily Allworth, then Dave Iltis, followed by Lisa Hazel. Emily, you are, oh, sorry, 1 second. Emily, you are unmuted.
Thank you. I would like to first say that I support ranked choice voting. I think it will help with our democratic system, and I think it is extremely popular in in areas where it is being proposed, and I really hope that Salt Lake can adapt that. I also would like to read a quote from Mayor Erin Mendenhall that she made to the Deseret News. She said, even though our COVID-19 numbers have dropped and are continuing to drop significantly over the last few months, mask wearing is still vital. We are not done. She said this less than a month ago, and yet there is still no word as to whether or not Salt Lake City will be having a mask mandate continue past the deadline of the state of Utah lowering their mask mandate. I understand that there is mass vaccination going on and that our case rates are down, due in part to vaccination. However, there still are multiple variants going around within our state, and travel is continuing to pick up. There also is not a vaccine that has been approved by FDA for our younger students, many of whom are still continuing to go to school in person. And I would highly encourage the mayor to continue a mask mandate in Salt Lake City. I would also urge the city council members to put pressure on their local government officials to continue this mask mandate that has been able to keep people in Salt Lake a lot safer than other areas outside of Salt Lake in Utah that have had higher numbers, even though they have less people. I think that I know that it's been shown that masks work as a way of preventing this disease, and I hope that we don't let up in this last end of the pandemic. I'm really hoping that this vaccination will work against these strains. Thank you.
Now we have Dave Iltis, followed by Lisa Hazel, and then John Ribbons. Dave, you are unmuted.
Hi, this is Dave Iltis from Salt Lake City. Had several quick comments. One, my perpetual comment to the council, please fix your email agendas. They still remain terrible. They don't have the agenda actually in the email. You used to do that. Please reinstate that. Second is regarding a proposal I sent to the mayor that took months and months to get a reply. And then as far as I know, nothing's happened to that. And that is tickets for transit at the airport. So if you buy an airplane ticket, you get a TRAX ticket included in that. And with billions and billions spent on the airport, and you want the airport to be a LEED standard, then please consider this proposal and work with the airport and the airlines to implement that. Next, on the Streetlight Master Plan, which is coming before the Planning Commission, I think next week, the plan ignored a lot of the stuff that the consultants had put forward, in particular regarding the color temperature of the lights. The color temperature remains too high in the plan. It is not worth the paper it is printed on. It needs to be redone before it's even sent to the Planning Commission. I hope the council rejects it soundly as in the current state that it's in. Next, off-street parking, you had a public hearing on that. I sent comments in. It's a huge step backward for bicycle parking. There are no parking minimums for industrial areas, and you need to revise that and make sure there are bike parking minimums for most places, not just recommended amounts. And lastly, Google, when they came in, promised free low-speed broadband internet for people, and that promise seems to have vanished. That would certainly solve a lot of problems as they are tearing up the streets and using public resources and incurring potholes down the road. So
now we have Lisa Hazel, followed by John Ribbons. Lisa, you are unmuted.
Hi, my name's Lisa Hazel. I'm here to give a comment on the drafting phase of the Streetlight Master Plan. I am in opposition to the current standard that has been put forth by public utilities, partly because they have stated that they want to have the standard at 3000 K color temperature. However, the consultant that was hired during the drafting phase specifically said that the lower the color temperature of the streetlights, the better for wildlife, the better for the public to be able to sleep at night. I can definitely say that since these higher color temperature bulbs have been put in throughout the city, that I have had a harder time sleeping at night. I have to use my sun visor in order to not get blinded and have my eyes bloodshot when I want to go to sleep. I support 1400K, which is the color temperature of a candle. This is very important for wildlife. And in terms of the public utilities claim of wanting to support safety and energy efficiency, this is actually less safe to have higher color temperature bulbs, according to the consultant that was hired from UC Berkeley. And in terms of energy efficiency, this is a this is something that that the consultant is very much for, lowering color temperatures in areas for both insect populations and human health, particularly in terms of having a good night's sleep. So I am very much opposed to the current
Time.
Now we have John Ribbons, followed by Eli Kaufman. John, you are unmuted.
You guys can hear me good?
Yes.
Cool. My name is John. I'm with Wasatch Tenants United. I'm here to talk about the SRO / shared living expansion going on. I think that while this proposal is fairly well-intentioned with direction towards housing the homeless, I think that I would encourage counselors, namely Counselor Fowler and Wharton, who've been pretty outspoken about your LGBTQ advocacy. There's specific dangers posed with this, primarily that it's a deregulation of housing standards for the lowest income, meaning that this would give real estate developers the green light to build apartments without bathrooms or kitchens in them, which could very potentially, we talked about the lowest rung of housing. If you are a trans youth out on the street, and trans people do experience homelessness at a much higher rate, you're now going to be forced to share bathrooms with a bunch of people at the lowest level. We should not assume that these are going to be affordable at all. Tons of developers or a handful of developers have made statements to the contrary. Additionally, we already have examples of some of these going up, like right across the street from me, there's some that are going for over $1,000. I just moved into an apartment that's 250 square feet, and it is exactly what they can charge for it. It's exactly what an apartment would have cost here for a full studio 2 years ago. That was maybe twice as big. I think that without any kind of regulation as per how much these are going to cost, maybe through the usage of inclusionary zoning, or specific intention as to what you're going to be using these buildings for, it's extremely irresponsible to just trust real estate developers to build these. It's just a deregulation, and it poses some serious threats to the dignity of working class people. So, yeah, thank you.
Now we have Eli Kaufman. Eli, you are unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I am with Wasatch Tenants United, and I would also like to talk about the shared housing proposal because I find it really interesting that at the last city council meeting, we demanded affordable housing, and your response to that is to take away our kitchens and bathrooms. How sinister is it that that's the best you can do? Is that really the bar? Poor people deserve housing that is not just arguably survivable, but in which they can have real lives in. We deserve houses where we can have our friends over for potlucks, dance with our partners, host our families, have hobbies. And it's really disgusting to me that you guys are claiming that this is going to be affordable when there is actually no specific wordage requiring shared housing to be more affordable than a space that has a private kitchen and bathroom. So I really think that you guys need to reconsider this proposal and either not pass it or make it so that somebody making minimum wage full-time can put 1/3 of their rent, 1/3 of their budget towards their rent and have it covered. That means these need to be less than $400 a month, including utilities. Because in case you didn't remember, $7.25 an hour is still the minimum wage in Utah, and those are the people who need housing. So if this is the lowest rung, it should be affordable to them, as in less than 1/3 of their budget. Additionally, I would like to talk about the fact that you guys promised that you would work with us on defunding the police after we demanded that this summer. And then you'll put your Black Lives Matter mural outside of the city council building. And now you want to give the police more funding? It's really hard to hear that you guys are doing your best, giving affordable housing as much funding as you can, and then giving so much money to the police. I'm speaking from personal experience, being at protests, facing up against riot cops completely unarmed and watching them lick their lips at me before hospitalizing multiple people in the same night. It is disgusting to me that you will not listen to the people who have personal experiences with police brutality. Where is your compassion for your constituents? Also, I would like to say that if you want us to operate in good faith with you, you have to operate with policies that are in good faith to us.
Time.
Those are all the speakers for tonight, or for general comment.
Thank you, Isaac, and thank you for everyone who commented this evening. We are on to F in our agenda, I believe. Is that where we're at? No, E, new business. This is a motion to ratify the determination that the council will continue to meet remotely and without an anchor location under HB 5002. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I vote we ratify that motion.
Second.
We need actual language, I apologize. Well, I lost it again, I'm sorry.
I think you're good.
All right, I move we ratify that.
If Mark pops his head up, we'll change it, but I think we're good. I have a motion to ratify the anchor location under HB 5002. There, I filled in the record. That motion was made by Councilmember Johnston. A second, I believe, by Councilmember Dugan. And I will go ahead and roll call this. Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
And I am a yes, and that passes unanimously. This brings us to section F, unfinished business. F1 is that we will consider adopting an ordinance amendment that would increase the ongoing annual capital improvement program funding minimum for art from 1% to 1.5%. I would look for a motion here.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the ordinance amendment, making adjustments to the percent for art, increasing the adjustments of percent for art, as stated in the motion sheet.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and second by Councilmember Mono. I will go ahead and roll call. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any discussion on these things? I forgot to ask that question. I'm not going back to the other one. Sorry, y'all voted already. Is there any discussion on this one? Okay, I will go ahead and roll call. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
I'm a yes, and that passes unanimously. Yay. It looks like with that, we are on to our consent agenda. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, move approval of the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Johnston. Again, I'll roll call. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mono.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously. And folks, that concludes this formal council meeting. Thank you all for your time, for being here today, and all of the comments. See you next time.